I created my own kind of a language where I mix unfinished concrete forms with sometimes lights or ready-mades, and I see it more or less like a poetic language that represents, I would say, time. I see this bench that is on top of the sculpture, something light where the idea where a person sits down and thinks, and underneath there's all these heavy forms that actually thinking can be seen as well as something really really heavy and pulling towards ground, while you're sitting, your head is more up. And other strong aspect in the work is this unfinished forms, which I use a lot in my sculptures. I guess it's connected to growing up in Latvia, and when Latvia got independent in '91, lots of buildings were left unfinished. So this transition of time where something is getting to build and then cut, I find it really poetical to see if it's going to be constructed or it's unfinished or it's decaying. These questions of times and the transition of time, or forward or backward, or I like to include in my work a lot.
My name is Meriç Algün, and I'm a Turkish artist based in Sweden since 16 years now. And my work is quite conceptual, and it's a lot based on my personal experiences and sort of like trying to figure out how they also tie to like more social or political like issues. And one of the first works I have made in relation to this move from Turkey to Sweden was a book called Concise Book of Visa Application Forms. So it was like all the visa application forms in the world containing in one book, like an encyclopedia-like book. And of course, visa application forms are like ranging from, very, very short, like very brief things to several like pages, like, 15 pages long with lots of questions. And I was very drawn to some of these questions. One like, are you and your partner living in a genuine and stable partnership? Or, this one, for example, like behind me, asking about if you have a good character. And I thought, like in 2012, when I was invited to an exhibition in Malmö that was directed by Jakob Fabricius, then also Danish curator, which was supposed to take place in billboards in the city. I thought I would take some of these questions and, build them much bigger and expand them into the public space, also taking them out of their context and presenting them in a different way. And since then, this work has been like traveling, and now it's here in the garden of the Kunsthal 44, and it's really interesting for me to also like see how the work kind of developed and where it is now.
I believe very much that a biennale should be realized in relation to the place where it will be staying, and it's very important for a curator to look years ago in the space and to find artists, if he does not know already, but to find young artists for this dialogue, international dialogues that will happen with the biennale. So I did 2 years ago in Riga for the third Riga Biennale, and I found a number of very interesting, fascinating artists in Riga that I had not known before. During that time, I got the idea to make an exhibition with these Riga artists in Mön, at the Kunsthal in Mön, as a kind of exchange of ideas with the Biennale in Riga. Then suddenly what happened, there was a war starting in 2022, just a few weeks before the Riga Biennale should have opened, and we had to cancel the Biennale. It was not possible for certain reasons to do the Biennale. The Biennale should reopen 1 year later. Of course, that is a very big interruption, and for a curator, it is not possible to start there where it finished, was interrupted a year ago. That means we need a new concept for the new part of the Riga Biennale. The old part had the title Exercises in Respect, very important thing to do, to have respect in our days. The new title for the Biennale this year in Riga, it is very shortened, it is fragment, it is part of the idea of the last one. And so we had a space between, and we had this plan to do something in Möhn. And the idea for Möhn then changed. First, have some artists from Riga, but also invite artists from Denmark who would have been participating in Riga, to have this dialogue and local, and then open up to some other artists from Scandinavia and other countries. So we call it Intermezzo because it is intermezzo between the former plant and the new plant Biennale. And I think it will be a very nice bridge between these two sections. And what makes it even more wonderful, I would say, this time that we open with this Biennale, with this satellite Biennale, the new buildings of Kunsthalle 44 Möhn.
For this Intermezzo, I made a chapel for something else, because we are always looking for something else. And while we are looking for the something else, and when we try to reach it, suddenly we many times have to face the fact that we are very vulnerable and we are fragile. I always study the space, and that is one of my elements. I use the existing, like in here, the chairs, the benches are made of the same concrete as is used in the floor. And then I bring some elements from my visual vocabulary, which go from one work to another. Here we have a glass ladder, which is very important to me, and this time it's the broken. And what is important in this element is that the shadow is stronger than the real element.
This type of work started with the idea of imagining just the simple notion of what the living do, all the things that fall off of us. What are the collateral effects of being alive? What we do with intention and without intention. And how, trees lose their leaves and snakes shed their skin. And then we, existing in this sort of capitalist world, and as humans who need more than just our skin in our bodies, that things fall off of us. And that those things have that sort of detritus of living has its beauty and its horror. So as a starting point, I had been collecting things from all over the world as I would travel around. And then the first groups of works were an accumulation of these things that I was bringing from all over the place. And there was an uncanny quality to this idea of litter that was not geographically based. I was always fascinated by how, like, when you are going to the airport, once you get closer and closer to the airport and the different public transportation systems, you'd start to see the litter of the train tickets coming the other direction. So you'd see like something from Berlin, something from France, something from wherever. And was really fascinated by these kind of transitions of stuff, of things.